After all the work in Fortune 500, it was really fun. So I've been here since 2016. I run the go-to-market organization. For those people who don't know TaskUs, we're a digital services company supporting some of the most innovative businesses in the world. So what does digital services mean? A little over 50% of our work is in digital customer experience. So think about chat, email, in-app support for food delivery, chatting with your airline app to try to get your seat upgraded, all kinds of things like that. And then we do voice support, but it's 100% cloud-based.
Can you introduce yourself to listeners and give your background so far as it's relevant? And then I'll start asking some questions about TaskUs.
Yeah, for sure. And thanks, Craig, so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. Jarrod Johnson, Chief Customer Officer of TaskUs. In terms of background, I spent my first 15 plus years in the technology sector. I was with IBM for 10 years as an application developer and consultant. And then I moved into account management and large services contract management for Fortune 500 companies. So a lot of technology services in my background there, which was a great foundation for me in the early 2000s. And then I went to another IT outsourcing company. We sold that business to Xerox Services. And after that, I just said, I don't like these big companies. They're too slow. I need to do something a little bit more exciting and fast. And all my buddies were working in these private equity companies. And so I went to a SaaS business that was private equity backed, which was super fun. Spent a couple years there kind of learning how to run go-to-market organizations in smaller, nimbler companies and building them from scratch. And then in 2016, I stumbled on TaskUs. We were not very big. We were 4,000 employees globally, which for a services firm, was not that big. The largest players were 300, 400,000 employees. But I really liked the services. It was a heavy mix of digital services. I'll talk more about that in a second. And then it was the coolest customer list I had ever seen. It was all these Silicon Valley tech startups. They had a contract with one of the biggest tech firms doing like $40 million a year. And this client was just on a rocket ship. And I was like, I don't know how these kids figured out how to land these kind of clients, but I can learn something from them. After all the work in Fortune 500, it was really, really fun. So I've been here since 2016. I run the go-to-market organization. For those people who don't know TaskUs, we're a digital services company supporting some of the most innovative businesses in the world. So what does digital services mean? A little over 50% of our work is in digital customer experience. So think about chat, email, in-app support for food delivery, chatting with your airline app to try to get your seat upgraded, all kinds of things like that. And then we do voice support, but it's 100% cloud-based. So there are these critical moments in financial services, fintech businesses and such, healthcare and health tech businesses where you really want to get on the phone with someone. We do that support as well. So that's the bulk of our business. We've got a trust and safety practice, which we like to think of ourselves as the police force of the social web. We protect users. We take down inappropriate advertiser and user content. We do dating apps, social media sites, streaming businesses. And we also have a financial crime and compliance business that's in there too for our fintech clients, where we do KYC work, know your customer, anti-money laundering, things like that. That's about 25% of our business. And then the remainder is our AI services practice. That's everything from managing autonomous vehicles in the field, data tagging, annotation, building AI models, an emerging thing we call AI safety, which is helping make sure that those models are actually safe when they get deployed out to end consumers. It's a super fun, exciting business, historically one of the fastest growing in the services sector in my time here. So glad to talk more about it.
Yeah, I mean, the safety thing fascinates me. Let's, before we get into that, why has AI become central to your vision of next generation consumer experience? And I'll say that I've talked to a lot of customer service companies that are implementing, AI generated voice and text and those sorts of things. It seems like a fairly crowded sector right now, but tell us about how AI is central to TaskUs.
Yeah, it's a great question. In the customer experience space, it's all anybody's talking about. Like you said, it's a very fragmented marketplace right now, but everybody's trying to figure out, is there a better way to serve my customer and transform what I do through the use of AI and AI technologies, agentic AI, et cetera. Many of those clients are doing chatbot work today, but it's relatively primitive. And from a TaskUs perspective, if that's what the market wants and that's where the market's going, we're going to try to go get there. We're still not the largest player in the space. We have an opportunity that if we can lead in helping customers get these kind of solutions right, we think we can continue to grow and take share in the marketplace from kind of the bigger, slower competitors. There's another side of this though, Craig, that is like an existential threat, right? So if 50% of my business is humans answering customer contacts, I need to be relevant in the future. That may mean less humans and more humans in the loop combined with AI technology. We think if we can transform our business to be more that way, give clients what they really want and help them achieve their outcomes, we'll win in the long term.
Yeah, and so the customer are enterprises, not BPOs, right? I mean, you're not plugging this in at the call center. You're giving it to customers, and then if they have a call center, it can integrate with TaskUs technology. Is that right?
Yeah, we're using third-party technologies, but the concept you just said is correct. So the clients will select and choose to implement the technologies. We'll advise them, we'll help with the architecture, we'll talk about the workflows, and that'll be the first line of defense to try to triage and solve these end customer issues in the most efficient way possible and in the way that the customer wants to be served. And then the humans in the loop are TaskUs behind that first line of defense. So when there's something that's critical, maybe it's fraud related, maybe it's financially related, maybe it's a critical healthcare issue, or just an issue that the client feels like they want a human to help solve, either due to complexity or the emotional nature of it, that the human is still there to handle those exception cases.
Yeah, and then you did a deal recently with two companies, Regal and Decagon. Am I pronouncing those right?
Yeah, that's right.
Can you tell how those partnerships? I'm sorry. Can you tell us how those partnerships fit into your AI strategy?
Yeah, we wanted to have an agentic AI platform to help serve our clients. And so the difference between just simple chatbots and agentic AI, the agentic AI means this agent can take action for you. The example we use is in the past, we used to build a chatbot to support customer interactions for a neobank, a digital card services company. And we could tell them how to lock their card, but we couldn't actually lock their card with the technology. The technology didn't have the ability to go take an action. Now we can implement that same solution, and we can through the chat interface can say, would you like me to lock your card for you? And they can say yes, and we can just go take that action. A human used to have to do that. So that's the big shift. These two players we found were the leaders in their spaces in agentic AI for customer service. We looked at about 25 different players. It's a very crowded marketplace right now, and nobody has a real dominant position. We looked at technical capability, willingness to partner, cultural fit, to be quite honest. Like we wanted somebody who's going to move as fast as we did, work with the kind of customers that we work with. And these two stood out. They're different. Regal is a legacy voice technology provider. They built a voice-first AI platform. So it's voice to voice on a voice-based model, which is unique. They were pretty early in the life cycle of voice-based modeling. Decagon is more of a omni-channel platform. So you can do voice, you can do chat, email, different work types through that platform. And it's a full platform with quality management, analytics, recommendation engines, some other things. But it is, in the case of voice, it's voice to text to voice. That's kind of how the technology works, because it's a text-based LLM that's serving up the answers. Yeah. So we felt like we needed both. And they're both, they've both been fantastic partners, a lot of good client traction.
But with just, again, so I understand, TaskUs is kind of like a systems integrator. You're not building these solutions. You're putting together a system with these solutions in them. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It feels a lot to me like how we used to build the first generations of websites at IBM, or, we used to do ERP or SAP or Oracle implementations. Our job is to be the integrator who has expertise and knowledge on how best to implement the platform. We're going to configure it to meet the needs of the unique business case of the client. And then because of our history in the human operations of this work, we have the ability to write operating instructions and train the tech to do what we've done so well in training humans to do over time, deliver high customer satisfaction, quality results, while delivering efficiency in the interaction for the consumer as well.
Yeah, and so you don't have, for example, a customer service workforce yourself. It's you're helping enterprises find workforce and find the tech to work with the workforce and all of that, or generally does the enterprise already have all of those pieces and you're just helping upgrade it with agentic possibilities?
Yeah, so our agentic AI consulting practice does the implementation, business process management, outcome definition, and configuration of the platform to meet the needs. But luckily, because we're a legacy, digital services and outsourcing provider, I have the humans also behind that, so that when the technology either should not or does not solve the problem, we then kick that to a live agent who's in one of these TaskUs operations centers around the world to make sure that the end customer is taken care of. So the agentic AI consulting practice is the tip of the spear to help get clients where they need to be. And then we bring the human talent behind it when it's required. And when we envision a world where 65, 70% of interactions may be handled by technology, and then we would just focus on the complex, critical interactions that customers need to talk to a live human.
Yeah, I see. And yeah, so you have both ends. You have the tech, the agentic end, and you have the human end. And as part of your training of the human workforce, how to use these tools or how to interact with them, because that's one of the big issues with company kind of bolting on, voice on the front of a system that's relied heavily on human call centers, that the handoff can be very, very unsatisfactory.
Yeah, that's right. It's certainly the handoff from the technology to the human is still a challenge. Nobody likes to be transferred, right? Oh, I'm sorry, let me transfer you to the airfare desk, right? Nobody likes that. But because we've handled the human interactions from start to finish for so many years for so many of our clients, we have almost a better understanding of the process flows than our clients do. And we also understand some of the shortcomings in how they will need to evolve what they do in order to make the technology work, so we can help fill those gaps.
Yeah. And in the past, for example, closing a card, that would be done by the call center, or they would send a message to someone else in operations to do that. And now that you have that agentic capability, it happens right away at the front end.
Yeah, that's right. So I would say, most clients turn over to TaskUs or other outsourcing partners 90% of the contact volume. There might be 10% of things that are like an escalated refund or some dollar amount that they want to handle in-house, but 90% of the work would come to a human capital talent partner like us. Now, we're hoping that we can take 50, 60, 70% of those front-end interactions and then pick up the bulk of the remainder and execute on those for clients.
Yeah, but in the past, something like, did you say, what's the verb, closing the card, or if you have a credit card that's been lost or stolen, in the past, your call center representatives would do that, or does it involve more than that?
No, so in the past, in kind of the legacy world, only a human agent who had logged into a system had the access rights in order to turn off a card for a customer, right? A customer may or may not be able to do that. Some of the self-service apps can do it. You can do some things yourself. But if a customer called in, a human would have to go take the action to log into the system, validate the user, and say, "Yep, I'm gonna close this card down." And they might even try to save them, offer them a lower interest rate, do some different things. Now we can train the technology. The old chatbots could not take that action. They could send you to a help article, or they could try to walk you through the steps to do it yourself if it was available on self-service. But normally the chatbot would have to get you to a human agent to make that action. Now with agentic AI, you empower the chatbot to actually go into that system, authenticate, and take the action on behalf of the customer without a human having to be in the loop.
Yeah. So, from your perspective, how do you define agentic AI? Because there's a lot of automation out there that isn't truly agentic. And why is it so pivotal in the way companies like yourselves are deploying technology?
Yeah, the primary difference again on agentic AI is the ability for the virtual agent to go take an action or have agency, right? That's where the kind of term comes from. These systems on the back ends that our human teammates use are very complex, right? You might have to log into a CRM system to validate somebody. Then you might have to toggle over and get into a financial system in order to lock and close a card. And we have to train teammates for 2-3 weeks before they can get on the floor and be proficient. Now with agentic AI, I can train technology to overcome these previous systems limitations and actually take action on behalf of the end user or the customer or the member to deliver the result they need without so much human intervention and frankly error. You obviously have to train the technology to take the right actions, and there will be things you have to tune over time. But that's the primary difference from the old websites you go to, and like you're going to a help center and you're looking up a knowledge article to do something yourself, or the chatbot who might feed you information but can't take an action on your behalf. So the big leap is the ability to actually create the integration. The Decagon or Regal system can actually go talk to the CRM and validate. You can actually go talk to the financial system and lock your card and then tell you, hey, you're taken care of. So it's a big leap in functionality. And I imagine this will continue to evolve, and they'll be able to take even more actions on behalf of consumers.
Yeah. And how does Regal and Decagon work together? It doesn't depend on, yeah, tell me how that works.
Yeah, so in theory, they could. We have clients who are using multiple agentic AI platforms for different use cases, or sometimes they want to test both and see which one is performing better than the other. But in most of our cases, our clients are, and maybe it's because it's early days, but our clients are picking one that best meets their needs. And again, in the case of Regal, if you have a use case like a voice interaction that is costing you a lot of money that you think can be handled by technology, they're a great fit. Decagon might be a great fit for multi-channel interactions where you're looking for a different set of solutions. So we generally don't present both at the same time. We try to
Yeah.
recommend one that we think works best for the client.
Right, but you do recommend one or the other? I mean, as opposed to just making that decision on your own based on the case?
Yeah, I mean, we normally try to look at each customer use case and fit and make a recommendation for, where are they trying to get to? And then based on our set of partners, and frankly, there's others we're not as close to, but there's others we've evaluated that we understand that maybe there's even a third option. So we're trying to act as that consultative partner to help get them to success in their project or implementation.
Yeah. If did you say 60, 70% of call interactions are resolved with technology, with either agentic or some voice technology? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah. So the example I was giving is in the old chatbot worlds, about 40 to 50% of interactions are handled by the chatbot and resolved, which is kind of surprising, right? We have one client, maybe 1 million interactions a month were handled by the chatbot, which is great. And that didn't exist 5 years ago, really, right? The difference with agentic AI is we're able to push that, what they call deflection, or the ability to resolve inside the tech. We're able to push that up to 65, 70%. And I think over time we'll get even better because now we can take that action for the end customer that before the chatbots just couldn't do. So 70% is kind of our benchmark. That's where we think we can get clients to. If they give us all the volume they have coming in, we think we can get them not only to the old 40, 50 number, but get them up to 70. And then that incremental, we think is 20, 25% incremental resolution with the technology, which is significantly cheaper cost per interaction than the humans are, even if you're doing it in different parts of the world, low cost parts of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So is your workforce then shrinking, your human workforce, or as you grow, you just distribute the 25% that require human interaction across that workforce?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal.
Yeah.
Well, because this is the big existential threat part. Like, are we just accelerating our demise?
That's right.
Am I the MP3 player and I just created the iPhone or something? Right? I don't know. But what we've seen so far with clients is they're able to drive that 10 to 20% incremental efficiency on the simple contacts, the high volume simple contacts you want to allow a technology solution or a bot to handle. But then what they're doing is they're taking that savings, and maybe they pocket some of it, but they're coming to us and they're saying, hey, you know what we really want to do now? We want to put your best agents into a tier 2 group that is just going to handle my most valuable members, my most valuable customers. So we're getting these premium queues or fraud queues, or maybe they deploy more people to saving customers who are canceling or retention activities. We're seeing them redeploy the bulk of that cash. And so we're still growing in the most case. But I will say that the agent profile is getting more complex. So because the work that we're getting that's replacing the simple stuff is getting more complex.
Yeah. I'm at a conference right now where there's a lot of research conference. So they're talking a lot about advances in agentic capabilities. Where do you see it going in your industry?
Yeah, I don't know that I have a crystal ball on this one, but if I look at the most advanced users of the technology that we've deployed and that we've kind of studied in the market, I think that Agentic AI will take these simple interactions that are already probably enabled for self-service, but the users don't know how to do it. I think it'll almost wipe out that simple contact volume. We think that represents maybe 20 to 30% of our interactions that we get today over the next 3 years. So I think that what I'll call level 1 work, that simpler work, will go away pretty fast. But I think on the horizon, what's really interesting is the translation technologies are becoming more advanced on top of these agentic solutions. So things you couldn't automate before because they were in Japanese and the technology couldn't handle it. All of a sudden, this advanced translation work is going to mean that you can solve even more work globally than you could with your old chatbot solutions. And even 18 months ago with the LLM-based AI solutions, the translation wasn't quite there. Now it's there. The other big advancement has been voice. So I anticipate that translation and voice on top of agentic AI will continue to drive more and more adoption. And then I imagine that today we're taking sort of one-step actions for clients on simple things. I imagine you'll get to a day where the workflows will allow the agentic AI technology to take multiple steps and actions for you and understand the context of your entire trip or your entire customer journey or experience that you're going through, and then actually be able to start making recommendations and interact with you. I can see a day where they'll have contextual history on you. So when you call in one time or chat in one time, when you come back, they know you're booked on the next flight to Chicago. They know where your seat assignment is, and they start to predict, what it is you may be needing based on your historical interactions. So I think there's a lot of potential for this to continue to evolve, at least over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, and I was going to ask about getting from pilot to production, because so many enterprises are experimenting, but so many of those pilots are failing. Yeah. And you guys must have gone through that arc. What challenges do companies face when moving into deployments of agentic AI? What challenges did you guys face? That's one question. And then is TaskUs moving toward, when you were talking about more complex agentic workflows, are you moving towards maybe beyond customer service to helping companies implement multi-agent systems that do more than respond to customers?
Yeah. So on your last question, we absolutely see a day where there will be multi-agent activity handling customer interactions. So a lot of the model developers today and the Decagon and Regal examples, they're trying to say laser focused on, I am a customer service chatbot or AI solution, because they know that market's plenty big. They want to stay hyper-focused, don't want to spread their resources. But then we talked about other complex interactions like fraud and financial crimes. someone's going to go build an AI solution for just specifically that problem that will know how to handle your disputing a charge on your credit card. I need to investigate that dispute and understand from the merchant were they really supposed to charge you or not. Somebody's going to build that, right? So you can see a day where you've got multi-agent orchestration handling the complexities of what really has to happen to solve a customer's problem and get to end of job. So we see us going along that journey with our clients, and we can see it when our longest standing implementations. It starts with simple, starts with the baseline, goes to the next, then you tackle a new problem. In terms of challenges, I'd put them into 3 buckets that are pretty consistent. Number one, everything you're training an AI solution to do is based on the information that you feed it. So these knowledge articles, which are your operating procedures for this is how you open an account, verify that it's you, check the account balance, like all those instructions have to be accurate. And most clients do not have enough up-to-date knowledge management systems and policies in order for an AI solution to ingest them and then execute correctly. So we find one of the first things we have to do is get the scope tightened, work on those knowledge articles and policies and procedures, document them correctly, and then come up with a way to consistently update and manage those over time. So challenge number 1, the base knowledge management's got to be in place. Challenge number 2, our clients are some of the most sophisticated technology companies in the world, and they're most of the apps on your phone, and they're beautiful. When you log into them, the user experience, how you select an item, and he'll do my tip and auto refund, all these things, it's beautiful facing the customer. They don't exactly put the same kind of engineering talent on the back office systems that a TaskUs teammate might use to go execute work every day. I'm never more fascinated than when I watch a TaskUs teammate and I sit side by side in the centers, and they're going between tabs and multiple systems and copy paste here, this, in order to make the process work. So they generally have limitations in what they can ask an AI agent to do because they have their own system limitations on the back end, which maybe humans can work around, but a technology solution is a little hard. And sometimes they say, you know what, I'm not going to solve this right now with Agentic AI because I need to go fix my back end system first. Once I fix that, then I'll deploy the AI on it. So that's bucket number 2 is back end system sophistication, I'll call it. And then the third is just an industry reality, which is the sophistication of the platforms and the partner technologies are still evolving. So 2 years ago, when we started deploying Agentic AI systems, the partners did not have the same level of capability that they have today, right? So they're constantly adding features, functionality that serve the clients, which is great. But you're going to continue to have this, sophistication curve on the platforms where they're continuing to build out more functionality. Decagon, I think a year ago, Decagon had barely released their voice modules. They didn't even have voice to start. Translation now is at a point where it can be plugged in real-time analytics, sentiment monitoring, like a bunch of these, features and functionality have come in over time as the platforms get more mature. So that's the third challenge for the clients is like to make sure you pick a partner and you're willing to ride that sophistication curve. So you may pick the right partner today, but you need the right partner in 2 years also.
Yeah. And for you guys working with the Agentic solutions, I mean, did you go through that having to fill out your knowledge documents and getting it prepared for using these agents, or is that only really something that happens on the customer side?
It's mostly on the customer side, but we did our first implementation with Decagon on ourselves. We had about 150 people who did HR service desk work, like our own employees calling in saying, I have a payroll issue, I have a benefits issue or something. And we said, if we're going to go market this to customers, clients, let's go learn and use it on ourselves. And boy, did we learn, the harsh realities of, what it takes to make these systems really work well. So that's one thing. And then I'll be quite frank, thank goodness we had such strong partners in Decagon and Regal. They really held our hands on the first few so that we could learn, because these technologies are so new. It's not like you can go out and find a certified, Decagon consultant, we basically have forward deployed engineers who are custom engineering solutions for clients in real time on systems that are being updated and upgraded kind of every day, it feels like. So there's been a lot of hand holding along the way.
Yeah, and can you give an example of a customer? You don't have to name the customer, but
Sure.
where a deployment with either Regal or Decagon together with TaskUs move the needle, and I mean, how do you measure success in this?
Yeah, that's a great question. The one I'm most proud about right now is it's a health technology platform. So it's an app that connects customers to counselors or psychologists, mental health professionals. And you can imagine this is a big matching problem for the platform. They're trying to get the right person with the right counselor at the right time. And setting the appointment is relatively simple through the technology to set the initial appointment. The problem is the percentage of reschedules, cancellations, and other things is a huge revenue loss for them. So if let's say they had an 80% conversion rate before for appointments set to something, an appointment that actually got held. Well, they were deploying, because of HIPAA regulations, they were deploying US-based call center workers to do outbound calls to reschedule that appointment, confirm the cancellation, find a new time that works. And we were able to deploy the Regal solution in that case to do these relatively simple calls. This is just a reschedule. And if the patient actually just went back to the platform, it can be done very, very simply.
Right.
But they have to get back to the platform. So we were able to deploy that solution to help significantly reduce costs so they can actually do more outbound phone calls at the same quality and accuracy as the human-based solution. And our goal is to actually exceed the human-based KPIs and metrics eventually. We're about equal right now. And then at the same time, it's a huge revenue lift. If we can lift them from 80% set to held to 90%, I guess you could say conversion, that's a significant revenue and profit uplift for that client. So we're in what I would call phase one of that deployment. So it's not global, not every use case, but it's significantly enhancing the client's ability to attract and retain those patients.
Yeah, you don't have any metrics on that yet, do you? It's interesting.
I don't have any specific ones that I can measure. I know the previous conversion was 80%. I know the goal is 90%. We're fluctuating between 82 and 85 today.
Yeah. Okay. And what's the feedback you're getting from your human agents? Do they like working alongside Agentic AI?
I don't think we have enough scale yet. We've got over 60,000 employees globally. We're only in half dozen to a dozen pilots and production programs out today. But I will tell you the sentiment of the human frontline. So one, there's fear, right? They're like, is my job going to be wiped out by AI? Maybe I shouldn't embrace this, right? But there's another population that sees the opportunity for them to not be in a simple job that pays, let's call it, for example, let's say it pays $20 an hour in the US today. Well, if I can move up into more clinical work, more medical coding work, more complex interactions, more fraud and dispute work, well, maybe that's a $25 to $30 an hour job. So there's an opportunity that if the AI can take away the simple work and allow more of the complex work to come their way, there's an opportunity for career growth. The other thing we're trying to do with our entire employee population is encourage them to become AI literate. So whether it's internal tools that we deploy to them to help make them do their job far faster, smarter, more efficiently, that's better for clients. That's better for the end customer, right? So we're asking them to embrace those tools, adopt those tools, because we believe, and this is not just a call center thing. I think this is a employee thing around the world in multiple industries. In order to be effective in the future, you're going to have to be AI literate and know how to integrate AI tools into how you do your work to be as effective as the next person coming out of college who's already AI native, right? Been working on this stuff for 4, 6, 8 years or something. So we think we're trying to educate the population to say this is an evolutionary trend, just like using the internet to look up information to be more efficient in the past, or using a new system that a client deploys to do the job better. This is just the next iteration of that technology.
Yeah, and hopefully they will be able to move up into more complex tasks, and as the market grows, it doesn't mean shrinking that workforce. It just means moving them into higher level work. Is that the idea?
Yeah, that's right. I've been in the technology industry now for over 20 years, and I can't tell you the number of times we saw 4 or 5 different technology things come in and we say, oh, we're not going to need humans anymore. And the reality is there's more jobs in our industry and in the technology industry than there has ever been in the past. So it's just a matter of evolving and adapting, being curious, learning, and moving to the next. And our responsibility as an employer is to create the training pathways so that our teammates today can make that leap and take that journey with us to where the clients will want us to be.
Yeah, yeah. And so you were saying you have half a dozen either pilots or deployments. It's I've been talking to a lot of companies in this space, yet every time I end up calling the customer service line or trying to interact on a chatbot or even by email, it's a disaster. I mean, I don't understand why it's taking so long for adoption to spread. Do you have any insights into that?
Well, I don't want to say this and not insult you directly, but it's amazing how uneducated or unfamiliar the customers are with how best to manage their service from our clients. And it's the same with humans, and it's the same with technology. The difference is human empathy and understanding can guide you. So when you're saying something, you want to lock your card, but you don't know how to say the words "lock my card." You're saying words like, "I just want no one to be able to use my card," or you're saying something else. A human just naturally knows how to direct you down that workflow path, and then they can do the translation to, oh, that means lock card. The technology is struggling with some of those semantics. You have to train it, like you have to feed it, and we feed the technology solutions, cases after cases after cases, to give them the transcripts to say, okay, this was the right outcome. This is how I need to handle this, and you give them the operating procedures. But boy, the uneducated user is a challenge. And I think it's always going to be a challenge. A frustrated and emotional user is always going to be a challenge. Teaching humans to have the right empathy, teaching AI agents to have the right empathy. These are going to be, ongoing challenges, and they're going to slow adoption. That's why we all yell agent, 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 right? Sometimes. So it'll be interesting to see how it evolves. But I think consumers will get more and more and more used to it, and used to how to getting things done, especially with those companies they interact with a lot. So me and my airline, when I'm on the road, 50 weeks a year, or your bank, when I'm trying to get my kids their allowance, they start to train you as a consumer, right?
Yeah, yeah. Although I'm not talking about the consumer's inability to adapt. I'm talking, there's still phone menus and press 1 for this, press 3 for that. There's still those systems out there. How long do you think before the kinds of solutions that you're providing really become the norm?
I don't think it'll be very long before
Hmm.
what we would call the traditional IVR, right? That press 1 for two,
Right.
press 1 for help, press 2 for reservations, right? Whatever. I think that is going to be replaced relatively quickly. And what you're going to want to do is put an AI agent or an AI solution at the front end to triage all that based on natural language. The LLMs can absolutely do, right? You have to train it to understand what the customer is asking for, but it'll be a much more natural interaction rather than you having to wait for your list of 8 things and then you forget the number on the third one and then you got to go repeat the list to me. You're going to actually have a natural language interaction, like you're talking to your Alexa device, like you're talking to Siri. It's just got to be programmed, and that migration has to happen. There's cost implications to it. There are some cases where you may still have a phone tree because they can't put the agent in front of all those call types. They can only put in front of 2. But I think that's only a matter of time. I would say 24 months, we should see pretty significant
Really?
transformation there. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, yeah. And then, yeah, from you were talking at one point about not only improving customer service, but also opening up new revenue streams. How do you see this leading to new revenue streams for enterprises?
I would say it's not 100% clear to me yet, but just the ability to take cost savings and redeploy them to revenue generation initiatives,
Yeah,
and revenue retention initiatives seems to be something most of our clients are more than willing to do. Yes, they want the cost savings and maybe they pocket a little bit, but in the end, they have a business model. And if they can redeploy those savings into things that have ROI, they're going to do it. I think the easy ones to begin with are going to be new customer acquisition, lead generation, retention, and premium support. I think they're going to move into kind of those areas next. And then I suspect that as they have the capability, they may be able to service more products than they've been able to service in the past. So it may accelerate new product deployment, which then would also drive revenue growth potentially.
yeah. But the Agentic, the agent that's interacting with the customer, couldn't it also upsell or work on retention or without handing off to a human agent? Or do you think those things really require a human touch?
I think it's going to be a business decision. The complexity will be one thing, the brand experience may be another. But I absolutely think every example I just gave you, Agentic AI will move in to take over pieces of the human work. And there will be very strategic business decisions on, no, I want this to be a human interaction. And you can hear on the radio or TV people advertising live human support 24/7 and things. So it's actually a brand differentiator for a number of people, but that doesn't mean you don't want to take advantage of the technology where it does meet the customer need, right?
Yeah. How do you I mean, you're dealing with partners, so you're relying on their technology, but how do you ensure these systems maintain accuracy and reliability and compliance with data privacy and security?
Yeah, this is a major concern that we have. We don't think that clients understand how much care and feeding that these systems will need. We talked a
Mm.
little bit earlier about knowledge management and policy updates. That's just one in-house, thing that they have to manage and control. They should be doing that today, or maybe they are with a human process, but they're going to have to be able to do it with the technical process in the future. And then keeping up with regulatory, security, privacy frameworks is going to continue to evolve as well. The good news is the partners are coming with a good baseline. Like they know the systems have to be PCI compliant for credit card usage. They don't want to really be holding any private individual information. So they're going to come in with a good baseline. But what'll happen is each industry will have will have unique needs. So banking and financial services will be different than e-commerce or other things. And then you're going to have company specific things as well that'll have to be built on top. One of the things that we do is we'll do that upfront systems integration work and get you to go, to live for production. But we can actually stay on, do that knowledge management work. We can help implement the policies, write to agent operating procedures to manage new regulations as they come down. That'll be, there's probably a chunk of work up front that's kind of large scope. And then we think there's this tail of work that clients most likely will learn that it's the care and feeding and maintenance that is not strategic enough for them to necessarily want or need to do themselves. They just want to direct it and tell them what the business requirements are, and then get the technology partner and somebody like TaskUs to help make sure the system's maintained. Even little things like managing bias in the LLM models, other offensive content that users might yell into the technologies. Like you have to know how to manage these things. So there's always going to be new cultural nuances that you have to adapt to, and the models underneath will have to adapt to. So this is not a set it and forget it environment. It's going to be ever changing, I think.
And is that something that TaskUs provides? Because the customer may not have its eye on that ball all the time.
Yeah, we do. We actually have an AI safety practice that helps 4 of the largest foundation model development firms train their models to avoid bias. We do what we call red teaming, prompt engineering, prompt evaluation, essentially making sure that the model is executing the way it was intended by the developers and that it has guardrails on behavior. We've heard stories in the news about these chatbot solutions getting into emotional conversations with teenagers, for example, that have resulted in harm. Well, now you have to go retrain that model to not engage in such ways. And so we're helping the foundation model developers, which will help the agentic AI companies, the companies who are building products on top of AI, and then we'll help the end clients who then are using these technologies and have unique needs. So we'll be trying to work in our AI safety practice to do that sort of analysis and training at every level of the model development.
So if a enterprise comes to you for a solution, who retrains or fine tunes the underlying model so that the agent has the expertise required to do what it needs to do? Is that something you guys do, or something Decagon would do? Or
it's two phases. So the underlying model, whether it's Gemini or OpenAI or Anthropic or something, these product companies have one underneath. That's a standardized model, so that's already been trained on basics. But someone has to go train it on, client number one's knowledge. And so we, along with the partners from Decagon and Regal, are feeding that knowledge in and training the model in the specific instance that is developed for that client, because it's closed, right? It's not that none of the data that we send in there goes outside that instance's walls for privacy and data breach reasons. So, but it has to be trained on the knowledge articles and the operating procedures. So those have to be written, and we're doing that along with our technology partners who are doing most of the detailed engineering and maybe the more complicated integrations to CRM systems or backend systems. But the business process, logic, policies, knowledge, that's where we really have expertise, because we've been doing this to train teammates for 15 years.
Yeah. How large is your human agent workforce, or does it grow and contract depending on business?
We've been mostly in a pretty consistent growth mode in terms of total number of employees. We just crossed 62,000, I believe it was, we released in our Q3 earnings. And that's in, last I checked, like 31 sites across 13 countries, I believe.
And that's, are they acting as customer service agents, or is part of that workforce also helping train or fine-tune foundation models, in the safety and the safety aspect of what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so 50% of those teammates that I just mentioned, so call it 30,000 to 60,000, are doing customer experience related work. Maybe some of it's sales and lead gen, but it's what you would consider customer care-ish.
Right.
But that business is only growing, let's call it 7 to 11%. Trust and the teammates on the front lines doing trust and safety work, there's probably, let's call it a 15,000 teammates doing that work. That is growing at 20+%. So more and more of that work coming up.
Wow.
And the remainder of our AI services practice, that work is growing at 50+%, because there's just so much demand for implementation and management of AI systems. So there's a bunch of different dimensions to that. But it's yes, we still do a lot of the customer support work, but the other pieces of our business are growing much faster.
That's interesting. And then how much training is required for example, in the human agents that are working on fine tuning or reinforcement learning with human feedback or those things, or are the tasks fairly straightforward? I've always wondered that.
Yeah, it's a good question. So the typical customer client of TaskUs, a teammate agent doing the work, it's a typical 2 to 4 week training. And you might have a mixture of classroom training, and then you're doing some what we call nesting, which is you're taking some production cases, but you are getting a lot of off time for coaching and understanding what you did right and what you did wrong. The most complex work we do can be up to a 12-week training. So something that has to know how to work with airline reservation systems is a much longer training cycle. But on average, let's call it 3 to 4 weeks, something like that. Interestingly, the RLHF, red teaming, prompt gen, those AI technology things, it's a shorter training duration, but it's a more complex skill set. So they have to have a higher English language proficiency, and they generally have to have a little bit more technical acumen and critical reasoning skill. Those projects on RLHF are often mini sprints. So a client will call and say, hey, I need 50 people to do this, and I need the outcome by 3 weeks from now. And we sprint it. So the training durations are shorter up front. The work comes in these project sprints sometimes. So it's just very different, nature of some of the different parts of the work we do.
Yeah. And the customer service is kind of the proving ground for agentic AI. Do you think that's because it's such low-hanging fruit? The requirements are not that complex for the AI agents, so it's just natural that they would be the leaders in implementation? Or do you think there's something else going on there, that maybe it's the variety of problems that need to be solved that sort of test the agentic capabilities or something?
Sorry, give me 1 second. So the reality is the venture capital firms all know that the customer support business just in North America is probably $100 billion in services companies like me, and another $50 billion in in-house call centers, let's say. So it's a massive market. I think that's why so many of these AI companies have targeted the space to go develop solutions. It's a total addressable market equation. But if you look in our trust and safety business, and we do content moderation for a lot of the big social media companies, there's a lot of automation that's been happening in there for years. Machine learning systems detecting nudity or offensive language and automatically taking it down. That's going to pick up with the use of AI as well. So there's right now, the one everybody's talking about is customer support, I think because of its size, and it's going to impact each of us as consumers. But it's happening in, I believe it will happen more in all the service areas that TaskUs touches, and probably many others.
Yeah. And are there lessons from your work with Regal and Decagon that apply to other industries, healthcare or retail, for their own AI strategies? I mean, beyond customer service.
Yeah, I think the best advice that I can give to clients is that they should be doing something, or they will be left behind by their competition, I suspect. They need to get out and be testing and piloting, and they need to think about not just getting to solve some edge use case, but think about one real problem that has some ROI, and get partners like TaskUs, Decagon, Regal in the room to stare at that problem. It's got to be a big enough problem that it's financially motivating for your partners, and that there's real ROI for your business. So that's my advice, in a couple of sentences, is get in and get started, and try to find one thing that matters to your business, and see if you can have some success. And then once you have initial success, bolting on additional workflows, additional problem sets becomes much easier because the framework and foundation is set.
Yeah. Yeah. And where do you see the partnerships with Regal and Decagon in 3 to 5 years?
That's an excellent question. I hadn't really thought about that. I mean, we bet on these two because we think they're going to win. And knowing how technology companies that are winning work, I anticipate that their platforms will get broader and broader and broader. And I could see a day where CRM systems, as we know them today, may end up being replaced with something that's more AI based and an easier architecture to get work done for customers and clients, and have a more modern set of data privacy, user privacy standards behind them. That is the advantage of being the late mover or the second, third generation of technologies. So right now, Decagon and Regal are sitting on top of a lot of underlying technologies that are basically, I don't want to call them legacy because they're all SaaS-based, cloud-based, they're modern-ish, but they're not AI. I would anticipate that you'll see, the foundation LLM models, the OpenAIs and Anthropics, move up to provide more functionality, and you'll see the AI products move down and squeeze the current technology providers out, which is why I think all the Salesforces, the Zendesks, these kind of players, ServiceNow just today announced $1 billion acquisition of an AI agent company. Salesforce has announced Agentforce. These are huge initiatives because they see the license revenue risk and they see the opportunity. So that middle ground is going to be super interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's exciting times.
I'll add one more thing, and you kind of touched on it, but I just want to reinforce it. I also think you'll start to see evolving industry-specific solutions from the providers. So right now, it's like, I'm a customer service agentic AI platform. I think you'll see a day where it's like, this is how we do it for pharmaceuticals. This is how we do it for financial services, and you'll see very tailored, business solutions for specific industries, I suspect.
Yeah, companies like TaskUs, but that are in effect integrators, but for other specific use cases. Is that what you mean? Yeah. Okay, well, this is really interesting. Is there anything I didn't talk about that you'd want me to talk about? I'll put David up here.
It obviously depends on where is the work being done by a human today. If that work's being done by a human in the US for $22 an hour, the potential cost savings with an agentic AI solution is significant. You could be talking 70%. On average, when we're talking to customers, I'm willing to sign up for almost a guarantee of 20% to 30% savings.
Wow.
Even in cases where they've already taken advantage of labor arbitrage, much of the work has already been offshored for cost savings, we still think by optimizing the processes and using the technology, we can deliver 20+% savings.
Wow, that's remarkable. Yeah, okay, great.